Councilmember Schwantes will be here. She did email the city clerk and the city administrator and myself, and so she does have an excused late absence. She was running late from meetings in the cities. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any proposed deletions or additions to the agenda? We'll be removing item number 14.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the agenda amended by removing item number 14. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Consent items, Ms. Thompson.
On tonight's consent agenda, we have for council's approval the City Council minutes of May 6th, the City Council minutes of May 20th, Willmar Municipal Utilities Board minutes of May 28th, Planning Commission minutes of May 15th, the Accounts Payable Report May 16 through May 29, and for council's acceptance, the Central Community Transit Operation Board minutes of March 26th, Police Commission minutes of March 21st, and for council's information, the Invest in Willmar Board meeting summary of May 8th, and the appointment of Rhonda Otteson to the Planning Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent items as presented. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next is recognition of retirement of Mr. Jim Gower, wastewater treatment plant supervisor. Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Kind of with mixed feelings tonight, I'm introducing or saying goodbye maybe to Mr. Jim Gower. Jim started with the wastewater treatment plant in August of 1988, so a little bit of quick math, it's 31 years, almost 31 years with us, and has chosen retirement and is, as of the first day of retirement, currently loving it, it sounds like. And so really appreciate the work he's put in out there. The regulations can be daunting at times, and Jim's kept a handle on those very well. And so I'm going to be sorry to see him go, but he has left us in good hands. And so I think we'll be smooth sailing, and I think we're still in good shape.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to also make a few more remarks. We had a little party for him on Friday, and I briefly talked to him about that date. And what'd you say, that was 88? Mm-hmm. That was the year I was born, by the way, I think. That's a long time. That's a long time. But, he said he remembered the first day. And I said, you remember the first day? And he said, yeah, that was a significant day for me in my life. And I said, yeah, I remember the first day my military experience as well. That was 40-some years ago. So you do remember things. And, over the last couple of years, Jim and I have not had a lot of conversations. And that's a good thing, because that means he doesn't have personnel problems. He doesn't have equipment problems. He doesn't have emergencies, because he takes care of those things ahead of time. And he's a perfect example. I wrote him a brief note here, and I basically said, you're the example of the employee that we need more and more of. And because he set the example every day for his employees on what the standard would be at that department. And again, I would just reiterate, we don't get calls every day saying, thank you for our sewer, treatment plant. You guys did a good job. Everybody just takes that for granted, except him, because he knows there's a lot of work that goes into that to make that happen. And that's what makes Willmar a great place to live, is because we rely upon those public services, electric and water and sewer, and they do an excellent job. And so I congratulate him. A brief certificate that basically states that over 31 years of dedicated service to the city, and we thank you for your hard work and effort that has made Willmar a great community. And we gave him a card and a gift certificate, I think, to Home Depot.
Menards.
Maybe Menards.
One of those.
Okay, one of those. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, thank you. And thank you, Sean.
Absolutely, thank you.
So,
Would
I'd
you
just
like to
like
make a few
to,
comments?
yeah, I'd like to address the council and thank the city of Willmar for the opportunity to serve the residents of Willmar. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with all my coworkers. That's going to be probably the toughest thing to leave behind because we do kind of end up being family, so to speak. And I want to commend Sean and his department for all the support that they've given us and help along the way. I want to thank Gary and Public Works staff. They've worked well whenever we need anything. We've shared resources and help. The utilities came out and helped me pull some wire and do some things last year at the wastewater plant, so I want to thank them. And overall, most importantly, I'd like to thank the staff at the wastewater plant. They sometimes are asked to do difficult jobs. I've never heard in my 31 years anybody complain about some of the tasks that they're asked to do. And I have nothing but the utmost confidence in staff out there. So with that, I do appreciate that, and I will miss the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody for open forum? Then we'll have a text amendment to Section 1 of the zoning ordinance relating to the general business district, and I'll open the public hearing. Dr. Ramstead.
Mayor, council members, we have a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow tattoo parlors in the general business district. They're already allowed in the central business district and the shopping district. So this is just an extension, a natural extension of that. It's very similar use to hair salons. So it's our hope that you make a motion to adopt the text amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow tattoo parlors in the general business district.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring it to the council. I'll close the public hearing and bring it to the council. Council, what are your wishes?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve text amendment allowing tattoo parlors in the general business district as well, as recommended by staff. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what is the general business district? Is it from 7th Street to 1st Street? Trot Avenue?
The general business district is pretty much all uses that aren't covered by the central and the shopping. So it's a scatter, I think, from between there. It's like an in-between area, as I understand.
Okay. Can they do any in-house tattoos, have a business there, or they need a conditional use permit then?
No, if we allow it in the general business district, they will be allowed to do it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Additional comments? Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next, we have the Community Development Committee report. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met on Tuesday, May 28th at 5:15. We had one item. Staff informed the committee of a hazardous building at 312 9th Street Northwest. The detached garage is in a state of dilapidation since March of 2019 due to the heavy snow that we had this winter and it collapsed the roof on the garage. The garage meets the requirements to be declared an unsafe building, and if the building is so declared, staff will initiate the process for removal. There was a motion and a second to declare this a hazardous building and order its complete removal with all fees assessed against the property, and I'll introduce that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to have a hazardous building declaration on a piece of property that the building official has determined hazardous. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Maskey,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Fagerly.
And that was the end of our meeting, so I'll move to file the minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to file the minutes. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next, we have the Finance Committee report. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Kelman. The Finance Committee met on Thursday, May 23rd. The four committee members were present, the council members were present. In addition was Finance Director Steve Okens, Park and Rec Director Rob Bumgart, representatives from the Willmar Baseball Association, and the Willmar Stingers. There were public comments. Members of the public were present to express concerns about the proposed lease with the Stinger Baseball Organization. Some of the concerns expressed were in regards to the availability of the concession stand for other organizations like the VFW, Legion Youth Baseball, when they have events in the stadium, and the length of the lease as proposed. We have 5 items coming up for action. And the first one is the Willmar Stinger lease agreement motion. The motion was made to refer the lease back to staffs and the Park and Rec Board to work out details. Staff presented a proposed lease with the Willmar Stinger organization. The Willmar Stingers have had 2 previous 5-year leases, with the current lease to expire in August of 2019. The proposed lease is for a period of 10 years and would run through August 25th, 2029. The lease would set the game rate at $4.50 per game in 2020, with a rate of $3.50 per game for Saturdays and Sundays, with a projected $10 increase per game per year during the duration of the contract. An additional change would require the Stinger organization to clean the facility after each home game, which would save the city an estimated $7,000 per season. In exchange for them cleaning the grounds, the city would exchange the advertising rights, office space, storage, and concession stand. It was the recommendation of the Park and Rec Board to renew the lease with the Stingers as presented. The committee discussed with staff, representatives of the Stinger organization, and citizens present that concerns raised under public comment and the possible solutions for the usage of the concession stand. It was stated that staff and the Stingers had discussed 3 possible options on handling concession stand issues. Those were for the Stinger organization to operate the concession stand for any other event and keep all proceeds. Second, for the Stingers to operate the concession stand with an agreement to share the proceeds on a predetermined amount. And third, for the organization that is holding an event at the stadium to run concessions from another location on the grounds. When asked if the 3 options were in the proposed lease, it was indicated they were not. After some discussion of the importance of all organizations to the community, the importance to having everything clearly stated in the lease, and to allow staff the time to work out the exact language with the Stingers, it was moved, seconded, and passed to refer the lease back to the staff and Park and Rec's Board to work out the details. And I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to refer the lease of the Northwoods League back to the Park and Rec Board. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. I would just like to make a comment. Is the only thing we're looking at then is the thing that's identified in the one item, the concession stand? Is that all that's being referred back?
I think the first request was to review the 10-year lease. It's my understanding, I think staff is looking at whether that is in conflict also. And so those were the discussions, and it was referred back to the Park and Rec Board.
Okay. So I've had a lot of phone calls about this over the last, since your meeting adjourned. You know, I certainly hope that we're not going to make a fiasco out of this. You know, the Park and Rec Board, I was at the Park and Rec Board meeting. It was unanimous coming out of the Park and Rec Board. There was no discussion. There was no disagreement. And basically, the Stingers were asked, you know, will this work for you? And they said yes, and so it moved forward. And then it got to the council, and it got hung up. And, you know, the Stingers is one of the best things that's happened to Willmar in the last 10 years. If you take a look at when this city turned its course, a lot of that has to do with the civic engagement that the Stingers brought. And I remember I was a staff member here when the Stingers came to us, and we didn't know what the Stingers were going to bring. I mean, we didn't have any ideas at all. But as the first season ticket holder, let me disclose that, you know, I've been thoroughly impressed with how the organization is run. And in conversations with you, Councilmember Nelson, you feel the same way. And so I just want to make sure that we don't end up, you know, at the next meeting, 2 or 3 more concerns get brought up, and then we send it back again. And my goal is just that we move this lease forward.
May I respond?
Yes.
I think if you listen to the Finance Committee meeting, there were those statements made to the Stingers about how important they are. I believe that some of the things that were being discussed were also discussed 5 years ago. I think there is a way for us to move this forward that will allow the Stingers to continue being successful. Maybe there's some enhancements that need to be made that will also help the community to be able to have more access. It would allow for maybe more tournaments. I don't see this as a negative. It's not like we are on deadline. I think the committee had a good discussion regarding it. I think also when you're looking at least that length of time, and both parties agree that they have verbally agreed to things that aren't in writing, they both indicated while they were there that they were willing to sit down and look at this and put it in writing. And I think it simply made sense to return it, to be reviewed, to make sure that those enhancements are in place for all the organizations. It is a public facility. Yes, it's a great lease. They need to be successful. They run a business and they need to be successful, and we want them to be successful. So I don't believe there was any intent of undermining this or drawing it out, but I do think that there are things that can be enhanced in that lease that will benefit everyone. And it was the motion from the Finance Committee to return it to that committee to be reviewed.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nelson. Next item on the agenda. Oh,
No, we didn't vote yet, did we?
yeah. it passed.
Did we vote?
Yep, it was unanimous.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, I missed the vote. All right, our next item is a resolution to authorize the license agreement with Wild Ore Rentals to use public park property. Staff presented a proposed agreement from the Wild Ore Group to use space at Robbins Island for the watercraft rental business and the selling of prepackaged food products. Wild Ore has been pursuing the utilization of Robbins Island for a rental concession stand for a couple of years, and staff has been working with the owners to finalize the agreement that have been delayed due to the owner trying to finalize and supply the required insurance certificates. Staff, it came to us with a recommendation to approve the agreement for $20 per season and to require them to present and explain their information to the next Park and Rec Board meeting dated June 19th at 1:30 at the Civic Center. The committee discussed the proposed fee of $20 per session and expressed concerns for the amount, whether the amount was enough to cover administrative costs to issue and monitor the permit. It was the feeling by the committee that the amount proposed would not cover the cost, and it was moved, seconded, and passed to introduce a resolution to authorize the mayor and administrator to sign the agreement and recommend the proposed fee of from $20 per season to $50 per month. And I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to authorize a lease agreement between Wild Ore Rentals with the city of Willmar in an amount of $50 per month. Discussion, Councilmember Meske.
Can you explain under the recommendation that we're talking about looking at the agreement, but what is with the follow-up to the Park and Rec Board if we already approve this before it goes there?
I'll go back to Rob, Mr. Baumgart, because that was a request from him.
Good evening. Due to the fact that we didn't take this to the Park and Rec Board just because we wouldn't get to meet till the 19th, So we brought it to the finance committee so she can get started on her business. But I wanted the Park and Rec Board to understand her business plan and what is all the details of it. And I talked to her today about it, and she's fully aware of that. So she'll be at the next meeting just to give the Park and Rec Board a better understanding of what she wants to do at the island.
So just a timing issue?
Timing issue, yes.
And you'll remember as council, we did approve this last year, but then it was too late in the year, so I think that's why it's coming back now, right?
Correct.
Just Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Isn't there an issue she didn't have insurance? Does she
Correct.
have
She didn't have it
insurance now?
last year in place.
Does she have it now?
Yes, I talked to her today, and she'll have it in place, and she should be ready to go.
So she'll be presenting it to the city administrator then, or to the?
Yep, and then we'll get the language worked out about who, the title of it and everything.
Okay, thank you.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. Our next item is a resolution for the Glacial Ridge Curling Agreement. The committee reviewed the request from the Glacial Ridge Curling Club to amend the agreement with the city by allowing the club to be able to hire an architect and apply those costs to the 60% requirement to start the project. And second, to be able to apply the in-kind donations to also be applied to the 60% cash donation in section 5.2.2 and section 4.1.1. Staff has been working with the city attorney to revise the agreement as proposed, and the Parks and Rec Board is recommending approval of the amended agreement as presented. You did receive an email that had an updated copy in, and I don't believe there were substantial changes to it. With that, it's also, the copy is in your packet tonight. It was moved, second, and passed to introduce a resolution to authorize the mayor and city administrator to sign the amended agreement for the Glacial Ridge Curling Club as presented, and I will enter that now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve a Glacial Ridge Curling Club amendment to the agreement we currently have in place. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Councilmember Nelson.
Next one is our local option sales tax, a resolution to, for the ordinance. The committee reviewed the requirements to move forward on the implementation of the local option sales tax as it was approved in the November 2018 election. In order to move forward on the implementation of the local option sales tax, and in order to have the tax start at the earliest possible date of October 1st, 2019, the city will have to meet the requirement to notify the Department of Revenue 90 days before, which would be no later than July 1st. In order to meet the July 1st deadline, the city, per special session law, city charter, and the Department of Revenue rules and regulations, would have to do the following actions: pass a resolution to implement the special session statute to implement the tax as authorized. And number 2, per charter and law, introduce an ordinance spelling out the tax and setting a public hearing allowing the public to comment on the ordinance. No additional public approval is needed due to the November referendum. And 3rd, file the required forms and documents with the state and the Department of Revenue by July 1st. It was then moved by the committee to introduce the resolution to implement and improve the local option sales tax as approved by the voters in November and the state legislature in their special session. I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to introduce a resolution allowing the, approving the laws of Minnesota for 2019, first special session, Chapter 6, Article 6, Section 32, to impose by ordinance a sales and use tax. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. It was then moved to introduce an ordinance to amend the city charter authorizing the local option sales tax and motor vehicle excise tax. And I will enter that motion now to enter that and to establish a hearing on June 17th, 2019.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to set a public hearing for June 17th at 7:02 PM for adopting an ordinance for adopting sales and use tax and motor vehicle excise tax. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next is, I'm sorry, Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. Before I go on, I just want to thank the hard work that was done by everyone as we walk through this process, and to thank Mr. Okens for being on top of the processes that we needed to do and the timeline that we needed to establish. And so it's great that we're moving on. So our next was for information only. We did review the capital outlay project financing and 2019 non-started projects. And staff is, and the committee reviewed all of the capital project financing issues and reviewed and discussed the capital projects to just have an idea of where we need to come up with the money for some of the things that have not been allocated. The next item was just to review the meeting schedule. And we reviewed that schedule and also discussed to be available at our items that would be available for future meetings. And there was no other business to come before the committee, and we adjourned at 7 p.m. And I would make a motion to submit the minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to file the minutes of the Finance Committee. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Next, consideration of Civic Center Special Event Liquor License Permit for Bike MS, Bike Across Minnesota. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the Civic Center has rented space to the Bike MS, Bike Across Minnesota organization, who will hold a bike ride July 21st through July 26th, with plans to serve alcohol on July 21st. The Civic Center Arena Special Event Permit is required to distribute or consume alcohol on the Civic Center grounds for this event. The Torgerson Properties Incorporated, doing business as Green Mill Willmar, has applied for this permit with on-site employee listed as Lori Varpness, and is staff's recommendation to approve the permit.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded to introduce a motion to consider the Civic Center Special Event Liquor License Permit to Green Mill for Bike MS, Bike Across Minnesota. Discussion. Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, is that served in the Civic Center, or is it an area outside that's blocked off, or how? I'm just curious.
For this event, they are planning to serve it outside in the parking lot area. And they've provided a map and everything with it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Additional questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes, Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Next is Labor Committee consideration of an interim city administrator. Ms. Beckman.
Good evening. We have the interview committee and I have a recommendation for you for hire tonight. But quick recap of the process. We did have 9 applications for the interim city administrator, a few from out of state, but actually the majority from Minnesota. I did narrow that down to the 2 top candidates who had the most experience in city management or city administration already, as well as education that lined up with what we wanted. And the committee and I did interview 2 applicants last week, and our recommendation for hire is Brian Grammons. He came recommended by the League of Minnesota Cities and has served as a city administrator or manager in the past. He does have a master's degree in public administration and a combined 34 years of experience as a city administrator or manager. Most recently served as the city manager at New Ulm for 17 years. He does also have extensive experience with local option sales tax, which we dove more into in our interview. And he is who I also do have in your packet another summary of his education and experience too. Any questions?
I'd move that we approve Brian Gremens as, for hire as the interim city administrator.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Osmus.
Not to get too much in the weeds, but are we having to provide lodging and,
Yes, sorry. Yes, we did agree to provide housing for, he will be in the office 3 days a week is the working plan right now, and we would provide housing for those 3 days. Otherwise, he will be commuting from New Ulm.
Councilmember Nelson.
Just a question, I'm supportive of approving this. I know it states here that the contract is being drafted, so will we be reviewing that at the next meeting, or?
Yes, I just sent it, I got it from the attorney over our weekend, and then I sent it to Mr. Grammons this morning just for approval and signature and review. But yes, that will all be reviewed before it's signed by the mayor and the city clerk. That will all be reviewed by the council.
So is the correct motion then to approve him for hire or to approve us to take the next steps to hire him?
I believe it would be to approve for hire, pending, of course, a contract that's agreed upon by both parties.
I haven't been involved in any of the process at all. I mean, it's not how we've ever done anything like this
Was ready
before,
to
but
speak.
Mr. Scott?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my recommendation would be that the motion be to appoint Brian Grametz as the interim city administrator just for consistency with the lingo in the charter, which specifically addresses appointments as city administrator. And then I guess the question for the HR director is, at this point, does the council need to approve the employment agreement that we put together? I understand it just went out to Mr. Grametz today, given the time frame, but if he starts on, is it June 11th?
That's the target date.
And the council doesn't meet until the next week, do they need to approve the contract tonight? And if so, I think we should provide a kind of bullet point of the terms and conditions in the contract.
I can do that.
If you have it, I also have a copy.
Councilmember Maskey.
That's what, if I can, the contract is very much mirrors the contract that we had when we did our previous administrator. We used that, I know the mayor had mentioned to us at committee, but that's sort of normal terms, and it indeed is. And so you can expect that the contract will look very much similar to the one we hired with Mr. McGuire back when he was retained. The only difference will be the pay. Otherwise, I think the contract will be very much the same because we just used it as a carbon copy. Those things that we thought perhaps aren't things that you have to pay for an interim administrator, I'm going to let you know that they are, and they actually know those terms fairly well. Matter of fact, I won't say, but one of our interviewees even referenced those contractual terms, and so they actually, I think it's probably from the League of Minnesota Cities, probably even tells them what usually goes into those contracts because they all were very versed on that.
Additional discussion. All in favor of the motion, Councilmember Nelson.
I'm still unclear on how the motion is worded and what we're actually
The motion
Voting on.
is to, and I'm assuming that the maker and the seconder are favorable to the agreement, to appoint an interim city administrator as named by by Ms. Beckman and Councilmember Maskey.
Will we then be taking a motion the next time then for the terms? Or are we
We
reviewing?
have a motion on the table now. We'll have to act on that motion before we can entertain another motion. It would be in order then if the committee chose to make that recommendation to approve the contract, then they could do that at that time. But we have a motion on the table now we should deal with first. Councilmember Rasmus.
thank you. Won't he already be in place? And would we really vote on a contract after he's in place?
Councilmember Maskey.
We have a deadline of June 11th, and that is there. And so I'm telling you, I think you need to summarize the bullets as was recommended by, I'm telling you that the bullets are, it's the same contract that we offered Mr. McGuire, except the pay is different. Correct me if I'm wrong, but.
That's absolutely correct. It's the same conditions, just a different pay rate.
Mayor and council, just if I could make a procedural suggestion, I think we have a motion on the table for the appointment of the administrator. We should take a vote on that. And then I would recommend a follow-up second motion be made to approve the contract. I think before that motion is made, it would be appropriate for the HR director just to give the bullet points on the terms and conditions, just the, hours of work, rate of pay, benefits.
Any other conversation to the motion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Okay. So the bullet points for the employment agreement for the new interim would be 3 days a week. We have the Monday and Tuesday as hard dates, assuming the third day of the week will be Wednesday, since he won't have to commute, but it is flexible in the contract. The salary is $87,360 for 3 days a week. And we also built in the employee could be paid $70 an hour for work above that to allow the flexibility of them working a fourth day a week if necessary, but the normal schedule will be 3 days a week. We will participate in PERA since it is a minimum contract of 6 months, and that is the cutoff for participating in PERA. So we will be making contributions for him or another state authorized plan if he so chooses. There are no fringe benefits. We will be reimbursing mobile expenses, $50 a month. Travel expenses, including mileage from his residence to Willmar, and lodging, as we'd said before, lodging for those 3 days a week. We haven't found a place yet, but we're assuming it'll be a hotel for 3 nights a week.
I'd move to approve the contract for the interim city administrator.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
The figure that you quoted, is that for a 6-month period of time, or what is the time frame?
That's an annual salary amount,
Okay, thank
so
you.
that's prorated.
Okay.
Additional discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next, city administrator comments.
I want to mention something, and I'll put it in the email tomorrow. Matt Dawson had sent out an email inviting everyone to the Invest in Willmar meeting this Wednesday, and he shouldn't have done that because that would, need to be posted and everything like that to meet the the requirements of that. So please do not attend if you're not a part of the Invest in Willmar group right now. But I'll send out a reminder also tomorrow to make sure that doesn't happen. But I don't know how that was sent out, but it was pointed out to me earlier before the meeting started. So thank you. Other than that, that was it, Mayor.
Okay. Council comments, start with Councilmember Davis.
I'll pass.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The couple things I want to share with the public that I think is important. I think I'm on a boat, on a railroad track, whatever you want to say. Keep an eye on the grass clippings. I know it's a big deal. I know it's a joke. People laugh, but it's an important thing that we have to do and be aware of. I know we've got a lot of leaves in the yard, in the street, and it looks like grass clippings, and I'm not confused about that. But I do see people, vendors, mowing the lawns, and they are depositing the clippings in the streets, which wash down into our streams, which filter into our lakes, Mississippi River, down to the Gulf of Mexico. So please, please, please be aware of that. The summer 2019 fund catalog is out. If you're out there, take a picture of this. Pick this up. It tells you of the activities in Willmar and the surrounding community. If you're looking for something to do, look at this catalog, and you'll find information to do it. As we're going into the local option sales tax, we have a number of volunteers that are working on these different committees. We have to appreciate their time, their efforts. They have lives, and I just want to let us all realize that we appreciate them taking their time to work on these committees. And if it gets stressful or if there's a problem, let us know. We want you to be on these committees. These are community projects, and it's important that you participate. So if there's an issue or a concern, there's 9 people at the table here. Bring it to our attention so we can try to smooth it out for you. So thank you for your participation, and I'm looking forward to the big changes that we're going to see in our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Osmus.
I just wanted to make people aware that the Community Center Subcommittee for the Local Option Sales Tax is starting to do some visits. And this next Monday, the group will be going to Redwood Falls, Marshall, Granite Falls, and Montevideo. And then the following Monday, on the 17th, we'll be going the northeast direction and going up to Sartell and St. Michael and I believe Maple Grove to check out some of their community centers, to get some ideas of maybe what we could do for ours. And then also just a reminder that this on Thursday, the 13th, it's the library's Wisdom and Wine event. It is sold out, and it should be a good time, I think. And then there's fun stuff going on every weekend. Got Studio Hop coming up the weekends, and just fun things to do in the area. That's it.
Councilmember Plowman.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the Willmar New Lions. I attended the dog walk last weekend, and Mr. Holland was there. They did a great job. The piece of equipment that they raised funds for last year is now in the small dog park, and there was a nice crowd. That's an area that's getting used a lot, and if you haven't been there, just take a drive by and see the improvements with the funds. I forget, they've got plans for what they're doing with the funds they're raising this year, but I just want to say thank you to them for working hard and to make enhancements to the dog park.
Thank you. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Youth Baseball Committee has their annual youth baseball tournament starting Friday, goes through Sunday. They're bringing in 63 teams, I believe, so hotels are pretty jam-packed in the surrounding area. And it's their biggest fundraiser, so go out and watch some baseball. It's a really fun time.
Councilmember Maskey.
Willmar High School had its graduation this last weekend, and there are open houses abundance, but that does mark the beginning of summer, and there are a lot of kids out there, and they are packing the parks. I went by today, and I saw the splash pad was absolutely bursting, so enjoy the summer, but motorists, please be aware, take an extra caution around the parks, because there are a lot of children out there playing.
I just want to send my condolences to the family of former Mayor Yanish on his passing last week. I attended the review, and I know Councilmember Nelson attended the funeral. And so I'm not sure if anybody else had made it or not, but so thank him for his service, and may his family have peace with his passing. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Want to unjuice me? Want to unjuice me? Unplug me? Which?
That's your spot.
Thanks.
No worries.
I got your